Hi guys, how's it going? Laura with Garden Answer. I am planting some roses in my garden tonight and I'm so excited. These are a David Austin rose called Jubilee Celebration. David Austin roses, English roses, are my favorite category of roses that exist. If I could dedicate an entire garden just to David Austin roses, I'd be so happy. I would collect every single one of them. They are typically really large blooms. In fact, larger than they bloom when they're in their can. Once they get established in the ground and they start blooming, they're just huge. They're full cupped, really high petal count, and their fragrance is just amazing. So the Jubilee celebrations are kind of this really intense kind of salmony pink. And then when you get towards the throat of the flower, you can see flecks of gold. And then when they very first start, when they're in bud form, like right up here, you can almost see hints of apricot. And the scent is just amazing. It's a really strong rose scent, which that's why we plant them, right? We plant them first of all for the beauty of the blooms, and then second of all, we want them to smell good. Some say that they can get like hints of lemon and raspberry. I don't have that distinguish of a scent palette. I just think that they smell like a super great rose. But they get about 4 by 4, so they're not enormous. You don't have to dedicate a huge amount of space for this variety. I'm going to be planting a trio of them kind of around these birch trunks right here. I think it's going to be a really pretty texture and color right below the birch trees. And I did make sure to leave ample enough space though, because you want them to get equal light on each side of the rose plant so that they really grow evenly. They produce blooms on all sides. And you want to make sure that the airflow is getting to the whole plant as well to cut down on diseases like powdery mildew and black spot. So these do prefer a really sunny spot. So if you can give them 6 to 8 hours of sun or more per day, they'll be super, super happy. These are also a zone 5 through 10. So I garden in a zone 5, which, you know, when you plant a rose that's a zone 5, it can be a little iffy if they're a grafted type rose. These are actually on their own root, which is really nice. So I know that if we have a weird cold snap or a really hard winter and they die all the way back to the ground, I know that when they come back from their roots, it'll still be a Jubilee Celebration rose. We will eventually do a video on grafted roses, the care and maintenance of those type, but it's always a good idea on both grafted roses and own root roses like these ones to mulch them up in the wintertime. So put some dry leaves or mulch up over the crown of the plant, which is typically where the plant meets the soil level. And that way it provides a little bit of extra protection for the crown of the plant. All right, so now I'm gonna plant them. Aaron actually already came out and dug the holes for me because I am pregnant, so he helps me out now a lot out in the garden. I'm going to be adding a little bit of Biotone starter fertilizer to each hole. It's got mycorrhizae in it. It's really good for root development. So I'm gonna be adding a little bit into the bottom of the holes, and then I also like to scatter some around the edges of the holes too for the roots that are along the edge of the root ball. And then in consecutive years, I'm not going to use this today, but in consecutive years, this is what I'll be using. So usually about March, when they start to bud out and the leaves start to come out, I'll use a little bit of rose tone. And then I will fertilize them a second time, typically like mid-July, right after they're done with their first bloom cycle and they're getting ready to go into their second bloom cycle. A little extra hit of fertilizer that time of year helps them just really produce a lot of blooms. But these roses, you guys, are super low maintenance. I mean, you do have to deadhead them throughout their growth cycle just to keep them cleaned up and keep them blooming, but they're just not a ton of maintenance. And maybe to me they're not because I love them so much, but they're just a really great plant. So I'm just gonna start planting them. And I know this wasn't a super transformative video. It wasn't like a super big makeover of an area, but let me paint you a picture of what's gonna happen in this spot because I think it's gonna be gorgeous. So right to my left, you can see all the boxwoods. That's gonna become a nice formal hedge. So these roses will peek right up over them over the hedge from the other side, and it'll bring that sense of structure to this area. And then right behind, I don't know if you can see back in there, but I've got 2 little lime hydrangeas. I need to plant a third. So that little space in between this rose here and that little lime, there will be a third little lime hydrangea. So that'll be pretty, having the hydrangea and rose together. And then right here to my right, there are some irises and campanulas. And I don't know what variety of campanula it is, I wish I did, but they have blooms that kind of look like little ballerina skirts. They're upside down and they're a really pretty kind of lavendery pink. They're just gorgeous. So I think this area is just going to be so pretty when everything grows in. So anyway, I just hope you enjoyed seeing these roses go in and maybe learning a little bit about David Austin roses and one of the varieties that I love so much. We will see you guys in the next video. Bye.